welcome to another edition of Lab Rats. My name is Andy Walker.
I'm Sean Carruthers.
And today on the show, we're going to delve into the inner workings of your laptop, namely a chipset called Centrino.
Centrino. I thought that was a kind of cheese.
It's not a kind of cheese.
We do like cheese here at Lab Rats.
It also sounds like a sort of a small particle in physics, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. I had a Centrino ping off of my forehead the
That's
other
right.
day.
It came out of the sun.
Knocked me unconscious.
No, not that either.
No.
But you hear about this thing called Centrino all the time when you go to buy a laptop. So today we're going to explain what it is.
It's that sticker. That sticker on there that says Centrino. What does it mean?
Why it's important. And, oh, wait a second, Centrino 2 is out. What does that mean, too?
There's a new one?
There is a new one. But first...
I kind of knew that. I kind of knew that.
You kind of knew that, too.
I kind of knew that. I just play the fool because this is what I do.
And he's good at it, too. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, Centrino demystified after this. So, when you go and you buy a laptop, the question I get quite often is, hey, there's a Centrino processor inside my laptop. Should I get it? Is it good? Should I get it? Is it better than the other Pentium things inside the laptops? And of course, it's a bit, difficult to understand.
Yeah, because you could have Centrino in your notebook and a Pentium. Or you could have a Centrino and one of those new Core 2s.
Core 2 Duos, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the confusion. Centrino is not a processor.
In fact, it's actually a contrived construct from Intel's marketing department.
Wait a second. That doesn't sound like a good thing.
No, it sounds like a bad thing, but actually it's actually not a bad thing, because actually there's some engineering in it too. So let's get to the bare bones of what exactly is Centrino, Sean.
Well, if you're looking at a notebook and you have that sticker on there that says Centrino, it refers to not the processor, but kind of the processor. So what Centrino is a platform that has a certain amount of things in there that have to be bundled together before it can be called Centrino.
A platform.
A platform. So there's three main components to a notebook that are branded Centrino.
Yes.
Number one is a processor. Number two, chipset.
Chipset, okay.
And number three is wireless component.
Right.
So those three things have to be certified to a certain level of specifications to qualify as Centrino. And the whole goal of something qualifying as Centrino is to provide both power, like performance power, and power efficiency. So it's got to...
Battery life.
Battery life.
Right.
So you don't have to sacrifice on, having a machine that's really slow so that you can have extended battery life, but you don't have to sacrifice on your battery life to get the performance level that you want.
So Intel came up with this cockamamie scheme a few years ago. And in fact, it's actually been through...
Cockamamie. That's like a word from the 1800s or something.
I know, I like that. Love that word. There's actually been 5 versions, believe it or not, of Centrino.
Yes.
But you would never know it because it's always said Centrino from Intel inside, right? So I guess let's go back to the beginning. Originally, when you got a computer, let's just talk about the processor first. So when you got a computer that was specified as Centrino, way back in the day, at the very beginning of this process, the processor was called a Pentium M, or the Pentium mobile chip.
Not to be confused with the Pentium 4M.
Which wasn't. Well, actually, you're right, it is, because it was a whole different spec, right?
Yeah. The Pentium M processor was the first generation out of their research lab in Israel. And it basically took the old Pentium 3 processor and reconfigured that. The Pentium 4 was kind of a dead end. So they took this Pentium 3 processor, extended the pipelines, just made it, that sounds like gibberish, but all you need to know is it made it more powerful and more power efficient.
It made it super good.
It made it super good.
Yeah, and it actually made it more power efficient, right? It used less power, ran cooler, and so it was ideal for a laptop, right?
Exactly. Yeah, because before that, what was happening, we had the Pentium 4s, and they were essentially turning these notebooks into space heaters, essentially, and consuming so much power that if you actually ran it in the airplane, you'd have maybe like an hour worth of power.
Battery, yeah.
Or maybe an hour and a half if you didn't do anything at all except look at the blinking cursor. So
there was no DVD playback. There was none of that exciting stuff that you'd come to expect of your laptop today.
yeah, so it was a huge breakthrough when they did that.
So Pentium M. So start off with the Pentium M, and in fact, coming through to today, we have a blinking television back here.
That's a feature, not a bug.
Not a bug. Okay. So so Pentium M was the original chip, and now it's become actually went to Core Duo. And then the Core 2 Duo. Now the Core 2 Duo is a super efficient, low-powered, low-heat processor that you can find both on laptops and, interestingly enough, on desktops. So that mobile chip technology actually showed up in desktops eventually.
Yeah, that's exactly how powerful that initial step into this revisited Pentium 3 architecture was, is that it was powerful enough that not only was it power efficient for your notebooks, but it was powerful enough that you could actually put it into, say, you've got an iMac over here, and that's where it went. It went into this mobile chips that were initially intended for notebooks, and now they're
in desktops too. Yeah, and that's all they are these days. So okay, good. So that's the chip piece of the Centrino. Okay, so originally Pentium M became Core 2 Duo, and so you get a Centrino laptop today. It's got a Core 2 Duo chip in it.
Right.
Actually, and specifically Centrino 2 does as well, and there are faster versions of that coming out. Okay.
Yes.
So that's piece number one. Next bit, let's talk about. We use a buzzword out of geek speak called a chipset.
Chipset.
So, Sean, let's talk about what a chipset is and why that's important and why that's a key component of Centrino.
Well, a chipset is actually, think of a chipset, it's another little processor that's on the machine, but rather than doing all of the computing, all of the number crunching and all of that, what it is essentially a traffic guard. Yeah. It'll essentially say, you go over there, all that data over there. So it controls all the flow of information between the processor, between the memory, between the hard drives, all of the other components that are on your system.
Right.
So it
controls the bus, right?
Yeah,
the bus,
it's
which is
something called the system bus.
System bus.
Which is basically the pipeline of data between the different components on the...
Not a bus, not that kind of bus.
It's kind of like that.
Is it kind of like
it drives data around.
Oh,
so
that's good.
So, but anyways, the chipset is essentially usually in two components called Northbridge and Southbridge. And again, that's kind of jargon. You don't really need to know what that means for the most part. But one of them controls the flow of data between the processor and the memory. The other one controls all the flow of data to the
outside, right?
The outside, like USB ports,
HDMI,
sound potentially.
Sound, yeah, all the external things you plug into your machine.
Yeah, and another part of the chipset these days is actually an integrated graphics component.
Right.
So the graphics that you have on your notebook are often integrated, which means they're built right in. They're part of the chipset rather than being another little component from ATI or NVIDIA that they slap into the notebook after the fact. So it means it's more limited in terms of 3D capability. It's not all that powerful, but it's there, it's cheap, and it's power efficient.
Right. So there's always a chip or chip technology that runs the video. It used to be called a video card, right? Video card. And it was, in the early days, it was a separate piece of silicon that would go in your computer, and you plug your monitor into it, right? But when they actually started to integrate it, it actually became a video adapter, right? It's just a chip integrated into the motherboard, or into the chipset, as it turns out.
Yeah, right. And in notebooks back in the day, they would have a separate processor that they would essentially weld onto the board itself, so it was non-removable, all of that sort of stuff. Now it's a little bit more modularized than it was in those days. But now you have that choice of actually building it or plugging in that component, or just using the one that's already pre-built in.
Right. There you go. Okay. So that's the chipset, right?
Yes.
The chipset, Northbridge, Southbridge, traffic cop, and then sometimes video controls as well, or video data management.
Yeah, integrated video and audio as well. In
audio too.
Yeah, there's sometimes a little bit of integrated audio.
Right. So Centrino, so processor, chipset, and then the final piece is what?
Wireless networking.
Right.
Because one of the big problems with mobility for the longest time was the fact that as soon as you started connecting to the network, you've learned well about coming in from that side, Mr. Biff. So when you're out on the road,
you have your antenna up,
and you have your antenna up. It's essentially a little radio transmitter, and it's just pumping out data, and that really uses a whole lot of power, both to send and to receive.
Right.
Not as much to receive, more to send, but if you have that going full time, then essentially you're eating up a lot of your battery life.
That's right.
So the reason this has become part of the Centrino specification is that it has to be very power efficient. It has to manage that really well so that when it's not sending data back and forth, that it goes into a low power mode so that it's not sucking back your battery just by being on.
Yeah. And you can think of this a little bit like, like an FM wireless radio, right? You turn it on, and it's got batteries in it. It'll run all day. It'll play a radio station, right? And then eventually the batteries will run out. Well, what it does inside of a laptop when it's part of the Centrino network or configuration is it turns it on, it broadcasts, and then when it's not doing anything, it turns it off, so the battery is preserved.
Yeah, and
so on-demand kind of wireless connectivity.
Yeah, so it just basically makes the whole thing more efficient.
Right. Good.
So all three of these components, processor was used up a lot of power before. The chipset with video and all that would use up a lot of power potentially, and then this wireless networking component. So now you have Centrino that's bundling them all together and is telling them to go into these lower power modes when they're not in use. So say you're number crunching pretty heavily, it'll ramp up your power to the processor and give it what it needs to do it. But when it's done that and it's just sitting there again with the blinking cursor, then it'll say, just scale it way back. We don't need that processor to be running at full tilt anymore.
Right. And as a consequence, now you're getting laptops that have Centrino technology with battery life that runs 3, 4, and in some cases, you have an extended battery 5 or 6 hours at a time, right? So, and again, Centrino is a laptop technology. It's all about efficiency of usage with that laptop. And still getting the full power out of the device, as you would expect when it's plugged in.
Yeah, and I mean, we should be clear that this power management technology that's integrated into the Centrino package for the processor and the wireless and whatever isn't strictly something that's in Centrino. There's power management in other processors. AMD processors have power management in them. Yeah. Previous generations of Intel had some power management built into it as well. And it's not the fact that this is the only platform that has power management for those components. Right. But what it's saying is when you get something that has Centrino on there, you know that it's up to a certain level of power management that's specified by Intel to make sure that it hits that level. So when you're not getting it with that Centrino sticker on that, yeah, it might have power management on there, but it's not necessarily going to conform to that, and it might suck back power at a more alarming rate.
Right. Very good. So, now, Sean and I recently were down in San Francisco. Intel invited us to go down to a launch of Centrino 2.
Yes.
Which is actually Centrino 5.
Yeah, it's one of those crazy things with revisions that,
yeah.
I mean, I guess they felt up until this point that it didn't justify the number 2 tag.
Right, because it's incremental improvements, right? Yeah. Anyway, so let's talk a bit about Centrino 2 then. So, what does Centrino 2 bring? Hi. Hi.
Kind of working here,
That's
mister.
Right. Bye-bye.
Nah, you can stay. Or not.
That's all right. Let's talk about Centrino 2, without cat interference. So what are some of the key features that impressed you about Centrino 2 versus the original?
Well, when we initially heard the announcement for Centrino 2 and started seeing some of the specifications for it, we're like, why is this worth a 2? So, you've got a faster processor. It's up to 3.06 gigahertz now instead of 2.4 or 2.6. It's a pretty substantial bump, but is it worth the 2? Not yet. Increases the system bus speed to 1066 megahertz, up from as low as 533 before.
Right, so doubling the system bus speed.
It's up to doubling, or at least adding a good 50% premium on top of some of the previous generations.
And the reason that's important is, with HD content, high definition video content coming out and being sort of being captured and also developed or played back on a laptop, you need a larger roadway to drive that data through the larger system bus, such that you can watch it and it's efficient and there's no jitter and that sort of thing.
Yeah, more can get to and from the memory and to and from the processor quicker. So it's like widening your highway from 4 lanes to 8 lanes in either direction to accommodate the traffic that's going to go through there at the peak.
Right. There you go.
So on top of that, it also uses DDR3 memory.
DDR3. Okay, so let's explain that.
DDR3 is DDR stands for double data rate, and that basically is faster, better memory than you used to have before. And DDR3 is the newest iteration of that. Faster, uses lower voltage for better power management.
Right.
So again, it's a slightly better spec than before.
Right.
So again, all of this, is this worth the 2 on the end? I'm not 100% sure yet.
One of the things that did occur to me, and this is one feature that actually kind of turned me on about Centrino 2, was the ability now. So if you do have, so it has integrated video on the in the chipset. Okay. So, but this particular technology allows for you to install a separate video card, right? So what they call a discrete video card,
graphics,
right? And so the idea is that you can have two video cards running. Well, we have two inside of a system, and when you go into battery preservation mode, what it does is the system actually switches over to the onboard video adapter that's built into the chipset and turns off the external or the discrete video card for better battery performance.
Yeah. Or you can do that manually, I think, as well. So you can actually tell it, now I want to play my games.
Right.
So
let's go on the discrete as opposed to on the on.
And then the video will kick out for a second and then kick back in, which is I think what's happening back over here. We're switching here our video.
That's right. With Centrino 2 technology back.
So there you go. So I guess they were figuring, we've got this integrated graphics. No matter what, whether you put the discrete chip in there or not, it's going to be there. So let's make use of that. And, so it's not going to be in every single system, but it is now an option for power system builders. They can actually add that feature in.
You'll see it on the higher end laptops and that sort of thing from Dell and from companies like that.
And this is where the Centrino 2 package actually does earn the 2 tag, is in the multimedia applications. So you've got that. You've got now hardware decode in the system as well of Blu-ray. The codecs for that. So now instead of having your processor wanging away trying to decode that data stream into a picture for your screen, it's actually all done in hardware, which is lower power usage, and it frees up your processor to do other things as well.
So it has Bluetooth processing smarts built into the actual chip set.
Blu-ray, yes.
Sorry, what did I say? Bluetooth?
It might have Bluetooth, but that's not part of the specification necessarily. The other thing on that an additional feature, and that is part of the wireless component now. The new version is actually going to start integrating WiMAX into it in addition to Wi-Fi. So the new one is 802.11n, draft specification, but it should be flash upgradable to the final revision when that finally launches in 2009. It's always a bit of a crapshoot, but that's the goal, is that it's close enough right now to what they think the final specification is that they figure that's the way it's going to be good. It's safe to go now.
Right,
with that.
It's separate from WiMAX, though.
But separate from WiMAX. There's also a component that's coming out, I think it's going to be in October of this year. They said it's going to be a combination Wi-Fi, WiMAX, either in a large form factor for systems that need that, or a small form factor.
Right.
So you can actually tap into the WiMAX capabilities of the network provided by your local WiMAX provider.
So let's just demystify that for a second, right? So Wi-Fi, of course, is your local area wireless connectivity. You go to your Starbucks, you have a router at home, you go into work, you wirelessly connect. Well, 802.11n allows for multi-100 megabit per second connectivity versus 802.11g, which was 54.
54 or 108 if you double that up. So
right. So that's an improvement right there. And so the new routers support 802.11n, which will be ratified. The specification will be standardized, they say, by summer 2009, I believe, something like that. So Centrino 2 supports that, which is great. Now, WiMAX is a whole different kind of it's still wireless technology, but it's actually at a distance. It's wireless broadband, meaning that there could be a tower up to 30 miles away on top of a mountain that can actually give you cable modem type speeds wirelessly to your laptop. So WiMAX is this technology. It's 802.16. There's a whole bunch of gibberish around that with the different versions.
16E, was it?
Something like that.
Something like that.
So the idea is that you could be at Starbucks and then you can take your coffee and you're going to go and you're going to finish your download and then you're going to go out, maybe camping, and you'll still have broadband connectivity via a WiMAX provider. So companies like Sprint in the States, in Canada, Bell, Rogers, and various companies around the world are developing this wireless broadband technology called WiMAX that will be available. So you'll have cable modem speeds anywhere you go with your laptop wirelessly.
Yeah. Downside, you have to pay more money for a subscription.
Yeah.
But such is life.
But it's the era of ubiquitous connectivity coming, which I think is really exciting.
For a business user, it's a really good idea.
Right. Right. And hopefully it'll bring lower fees. Right now we're using, high-speed cellular data. It's costing us a fortune, right? So. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Anything else to add around Centrino 2 before we take a break?
Yeah, there's a lot of tiny little tweaks in it, and definitely go to the Intel site, and they've got some information up there about Centrino, all the little things, all of the white paper specs that are really, really uninteresting for the majority of people out there. But yeah, that hits the major parts. Better multimedia. I think that's the key thing that actually drags us up to Centrino 2.
Better multimedia,
Better multimedia.
improved battery life, and better broadband.
Yeah, faster everything.
Faster everything. There you go. Well, that's Centrino 2 demystified, or actually Centrino demystified, with a little add what's Centrino 2 is. You'll see this show up on stickers on laptops in the summer of 2008 and moving to the fall of 2008 and into 2009. So keep your eye out for that when you go buy your laptop. All right, let's take another break. We'll brush the cat.
Brush me.
Brush you. And when we come back, I think we have some pictures. Don't we have some pictures?
We have pictures.
We have pictures. All right, picture time after this. That was fun. That was actually a lot of content around Centrino.
Yeah, more than I thought.
I thought it was going to be like a 6-minute episode, but apparently not. There's lots to talk about.
Yeah, there's a lot in there, and now that the new ones are coming out, it's worth knowing exactly why two.
Why two?
What's Centrino and why two?
There you go. Good. All right, now we have our favorite feature.
A picture time.
Picture time. Picture time. Picture time. Picture time. Picture time. Sorry. All right, go. Let's do it.
You want a picture?
All right. I love the pictures.
Oh, you're gonna love this one. This is from Eric in Winnipeg. And a while back, you asked people to send in their breakdown of Leopard.
Yes.
And I bet you're regretting it now.
I am.
You know, see, none of the Windows people have sent in an insulting one yet. Maybe
Yes,
make that a challenge. I'll ask you for that. Send the insulting ones. I want to see what you can come up with. Yeah, I'm not going to agree with them necessarily, but
Yes.
I'd like to see it.
Okay.
Send us your hate.
All right.
Anyways, likable interface, elegant design, operable OS, perfect support. Apple wins the war with rock solid security, so dump Vista now.
It's very good.
You don't need Leopard to want to dump
Is
Vista
there no
now.
such thing as a spell check on the Mac?
Yes, there is.
Oh.
Actually, that's kind of lickable interface, isn't it? But actually, you know what? That is one of the things when Steve Jobs brought out Leopard, he said he wanted to make the icons so beautiful that they were like candy, that you just wanted to eat them. So maybe it is lickable.
Okay, there you go. All right.
All right, and we have a repeat viewer here from Thamesmead in London.
Oh, this is Mr. Andy.
This is Andy, and
It's a great name.
it is a great name.
Your mother was a very smart woman.
Yes, and so here is Andy, and he looks a little bit like you too.
Sort of, kinda. Yeah. I like the look in the background though. Looking at people's like weird stuff in the background. Looks like an IKEA lamp.
Something and cheese Chinese takeaway.
Huh.
Is that
Chinese takeaway.
Indian and Chinese takeaway?
Oh, yeah.
There
Of course
you
he's
go.
in England, right?
There you go. So very nice, and
Good stuff. Thanks, Andy.
there you go. He doesn't look that much like Andy. He's missing the bad attitude. And
Oh, beautiful.
we have a bit of a tribute here. This
Oh.
is our viewer, Freddie from Sarnia,
Uh-huh.
and this is his dog Chinook, who recently passed away.
Oh,
So this is our little tribute to
Oh.
Chinook as well. So
that's so sad. Freddie, I'm so sorry.
yeah, he's a beautiful dog.
He has a beautiful dog. Okay. Well,
So-
should we dedicate this episode of Lab Rats to
This-
Freddie's dog, Chinook?
This whole episode is dedicated to Chinook.
Okay,
So there you go.
All right, well, thanks for sending that in. It's fantastic. And we're so sorry. All right, is that it? Just that? On that sad note?
On that sad note,
On that sad note. Oh, well. Okay. All right. So I'm just wondering if there's anything else to add before we wrap as usual. I mean, there's the usual, taglines that we give you guys. Don't forget to go to our website at...
www.
See, it's all sad now.
Yeah, I shouldn't have put that one last.
No,
But on the other hand, it's just you don't want to do a tribute to the dog and then turn around and go, but now.
That's right. It's like on the evening news, right?
Yeah.
I know. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, don't forget to sadly go to our website.
No,
labrats.tv.
you don't have to be sad.
And don't forget to send us email or pictures of your pets at
Feedback@labrats.tv.
And we have forums, of course.
Yes.
Sidewalker.com/forums.
3 Zs.
And that's about it, I think. We love your pictures. You can send your pictures in. Make sure you attach them. Not too big, not too small, just right.
Yes.
And pets and your TVs and your tech gear and all that fun stuff.
But you, mostly
And
you.
We want to see what you look
Send
like.
some more pictures of you.
Yes, because you're pretty. Yes, you are.
Every single one of you.
Right. Okay. Okay. All right, well, that's it for another edition of Lab Rats. We hope you enjoyed the demystification of Centrino and Centrino 2 today.
And seeing Biff's antenna.
Seeing Biff's antenna. There you go. My name's Andy Walker.
I'm Sean Carruthers.
Thank you for pushing play. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Are you ready? Try this at home.
We'll see. Are you trying to direct me there, Mr. Carruthers?
Yes.
All right. Go.
Okie dokie.
It will be insensitive.
All right. Coming
Mr.
back.
Insensitive, Sean,
I know
let's
it
get
goes.
ready.
I know it goes against your
It
nature.
does. It really does.
All right, if we can get ready to come back anytime now.